Welcome, everyone, to the Center for Global Development. It's exciting to have such a big group on the topic of evidence and development effectiveness in late May here in DC. It's a remarkable group, and I'm going to start in Latin America and with the Inter-American Development Bank, because in some ways the evidence revolution started in that region, and because we have a keynote who is the IDB president, Ilan Goldfein. Santiago Levy, who is on today's panel, was working at the Ministry of Finance in Mexico. And at that time, this was in 1997, excuse me. He worked with Pepe Gomez de Leon and the IDB. We have Ariana Legovini here. We have Carola Alvarez here, who's on the 3IE board, and others, to launch Mexico's conditional cash transfer program in 1997. This was inspired by Brazil's Bolsa Escola. And this was one of the first programs in the developing world to be rigorously evaluated. IFPRI academics from Yale and the University of California, Berkeley joined forces, and the rest of the Latin American Caribbean took note. And soon the rest of us, because I was also at the IDB, and so was Marie Garter, who's the CEO of 3IE now, Ariana Legovini, who's now the head of DIME and the Impact Evaluation Movement at the World Bank, Ashu Handa, who's the head of the Transfer Project that evaluates cash transfer programs at the UNC North Carolina with UNICEF, Ferdinando Regalia. There were many more. We were all at the IDB during this period working on these big issues. And I think, why was it, I reflect, that evidence and evaluation became so important? Because in the early aughts, cash transfer programs were controversial. And so evaluation was smart to show if and how these programs worked, and if they worked better, if they were more cost-effective than in-kind subsidies, or indeed sector supply-side programs at achieving development goals. Fast forward to 2022, there are cash transfer programs operating in 151 countries around the world. They are absolutely mainstream development, with countries and agencies learning from one another around the world. They've been shown to empower women to get kids health care and education, to transfer humanitarian assistance to reduce poverty, to enable asset accumulation among the poorest. They were essential during COVID-19. But because of the evaluations that we had alongside, we also understand that they're not silver bullets, that their expansion can affect labor market participation, sometimes local markets, and sometimes inflation, which is on everyone's mind these days, although cash transfers are not obviously the main cause. And that their benefits and beneficiaries have to be adjusted to avoid unintended consequences that make people worse off. We know that because of the impact evaluations and the evidence. I think it's a really good example of how an evaluation in one country, led by a small group of people, and happy to have some of those leaders here today, triggered really an evidence revolution and an impact revolution. That led in 2016 to another ex-IDB employee, yes, Ruth Levine, who was then vice president of programs, to set up a working group here at the Center for Global Development to ask why other sectors of development went relatively unstudied. And she asked in 2016, together with a group, and I think Santiago Levy was on that group too, called When Will We Ever Learn?, noting that evidence and evaluation on what works is a kind of global public good, and that the diffusion of that information and the potential of rigorous evidence to improve impact or to save money was a development innovation in itself. So from that 2016 CGD working group, 3IE was born, and we mark their 15th anniversary today. So happy birthday to the board of directors and to the CEO of 3IE. In this same period, DIME at the World Bank grew. The academic titans of impact evaluation, JPAL and IPA, were here. Ann Healy has been part of that movement directly. FCDO, on the back of deliverology and other impact, began to grow its evidence investments. All of this culminated in Nobel Prizes, and 3IE's evidence portal now includes over 10,000 impact evaluations. But there are 4 important ways in which the evidence revolution still falls very, very short. And we've looked at these issues in a 2021-22 working group here at CGD. I'll just go through 4 of these points, and I think our panel will take it up later. So first, still too few policies and programs are evaluated. It's generally less than 10% if we look at donor portfolios. It's less if we look at government portfolios. The availability of evidence is unrelated to the areas of largest spending. Journal articles are still the dissemination paradigm. Embedded labs and government initiatives to use evidence in an ongoing way to adjust programs is still relatively uncommon. We're not generating evidence and evaluation in ways that enable real-world action on cost saving or impact enhancement. And it might still pay to be ignorant. So this idea of what are the institutional incentives inside governments and in aid agencies, how can we accept disappointment even if we implement perfectly but we don't achieve our goals? And the real world requires new approaches, data and methods, and appreciation of all kinds of evidence. Cost data, starting with cost data, only 15 to 25% of evaluations look at costs, and how are we supposed to know if we're doing better if we are not assessing versus our existing spend? But we have to be faster, we have to be more iterative, and we have to be inexpensive. Our working group looked at the growing use of new data sources and innovative methods, but I think we could all agree they're underused and there's more to be done. So we're here to address these shortcomings and reinvigorate the development effectiveness and evidence agenda in development agencies, and I'm handing it over now to Marie Garter. Happy birthday, Marie, CEO of 3IE.